Chapter 8. Rumblings in the Belly. Grandmaster Aemon stood up from his seat with a glass of wine in his hand. He wore a long white coat with thick black outlines over a purple robe with wide sleeves. A golden brooch of a raven was pinned to his chest. He looked at his audience with a calm demeanour. A lukewarm smile brushed his face, as if nothing in the world could possibly disturb his harmony. Cato observed the old man through squinted eyes.
You hide your discomfort well, Master.
The face of Grandmaster Aemon might have told the attendants a straightforward story, but having been a diplomat for years who visited all imaginable courts across the realm, Cato had learned how to read between the lines. He saw the true story on his master's face, and even though he couldn't exactly define the unease, still sensed that something was bothering the old man.
My friends,
Aemon said, and gave his beard a single long stroke.
Let me begin by welcoming you all to this gathering. It has been such a long time since this great hall has been graced by the voices of so many lords and ladies. It has been even longer since all 8 masters of Onira have shared a table together. I would like to take this moment to show you my heartfelt appreciation.
He raised his glass to all those in attendance and lowered his head as a sign of respect.
To good health, good friends, and good fortune, to the nation of dreamers, to Onira.
The guests mimicked the Grandmaster's gesture. To Onira! They all chanted in unison and took a sip from their drinks. Everybody immediately loosened up after that and started chattering with each other again. Master Mycon seemed none too pleased about the discord, but Grandmaster Aemon allowed it to go on for a while as it gave him the opportunity to trade in his glass of wine for a cup of tea. Cato scoffed when he saw that Cronus wasn't in a sipping mood at all. The commander of the 3rd Division greedily held the glass upside down against his lips and started barking at the servant for a refill.
Seriously, Cronus Metalung, get a grip on yourself, man.
He was about to take a sip himself when he saw the pitch-black eyes of Master Caius piercing through him. It unnerved him enough to halt his motion.
What, Caius? Is there something you want from me?
He proceeded to take his sip, but almost choked on his drink when the spymaster seemed to answer his thoughts with a shrug. Aemon held up his palm. The belly stopped rumbling in an instant.
It truly warms my soul to see us here, together, united under one roof, our hearts beating to the very same rhythm.
He paused for a moment to let his message sink in. He made sure to establish eye contact with each and every one of the attendants. Some lords and ladies nodded back in agreement. Others raised their drinks, showing their respect to the Grandmaster.
Hear, hear!
One of the older lords shouted from the back.
I regret to say that this gathering is not solely meant to be a social event, however. Important matters must be discussed. Crucial decisions need to be made. Time is a river that flows without pause, and we have to adapt to its course if we want to keep our heads afloat. For the past 23 years, we have been blessed with a prolonged era of peace and prosperity. We should be proud of that. Even right now, I am overjoyed to see faces among us that have never seen the agony of war in their lifetime. But nothing lasts forever, my friends. Make no mistake. 23 years is a long time, long enough for relationships to change and evolve. It would be unwise to sit idly by and simply assume that peace doesn't take any effort. As nations, we need to stay in touch with each other. We can't always know what other nations are planning, but thanks to our emissaries who are sent across the realm, we are doing our best to maintain a healthy understanding with them. As we all know, the 7 sovereign nations of Aden have cooperated tirelessly for the past decades to overcome the wounds of the Great War together. During that time, we have learned to forgive, and we have learned to trust. It should go without saying that trust is the foundation of any relationship.
Aemon paused to take a sip from his cup. Cato took this opportunity to look around and saw that many in attendance were whispering to one another, concealing their lips behind hands and fans. He also saw that the seat reserved for the commander of the 4th Division was still empty.
But
The Grandmaster continued before the whispers were given a chance to grow.
There are settlements out there not committed to the idea of a united realm. They would rather live by their own rules and have no desire in maintaining complex diplomatic relationships with the sovereign nations. As such, we have no means to exert influence on their politics. The world keeps growing, and the larger it becomes, the murkier it gets. That is precisely why it's so important to keep engaging in diplomacy. More eyes will be needed, but there are only so many emissaries we can send off into the realm. If we wish to extend this era of peace, existing friendships need to be rekindled. New alliances have to be forged. Considering our history with Ludor, Raconia, and Kyogun, it is understandable that they need more time to accept our friendship. How long it takes for enemies to grow into friends, I cannot say. What I can assure you, however, is that efforts are being made. Malachi, for example, has finally decided to accept our offer of a long-lasting alliance through the means of marriage. Yes, my friends, the seed that we planted years ago has finally begun to germinate. As of yesterday morning, Marcus Bloodthorn has resigned from his position as commander of the 4th Division. He should be on his way to Rokan right now to discuss the terms of his betrothal.
Cato was stunned. The announcement took him completely by surprise, and judging from the rumblings in the belly, he wasn't the only one caught off guard. His eyes turned to the empty seat next to the dais. He begrudged his friend for never even telling him about the betrothal, though admitted that he hadn't seen Marcus in months.
I can't believe you're getting married.
His thoughts made him feel a little bit lonely for the first time in years, but only for a short while.
Poor girl.
Eamon raised his hand to pacify the cat.
If all goes well, Marcus will join Malachi as a member of their royal family. Naturally, more specifics about the union will be announced in due time, but for now, it seems that Malachi and Onira are finally ready to jump in the river together after years of carefully dabbling our toes.
Royal family.
Cato thought about the available matches for a minute and couldn't prevent the grin from crawling onto his face.
It would seem I was mistaken. Poor Marcus.
The departure of Marcus Bloodthorn leaves a void in the hierarchy of our army,
The Grandmaster continued.
The vacant position of commander of the 4th Division will be considered in the following weeks. We have a short list of candidates at the ready, but at the same time, we do keep our options open for any additional recommendations. For more information on the vacancy, I would like to refer you to Master Mycon. As for the remaining nations, Aspera has been our invaluable ally since the foundation of our republic. The past few years have been rather turbulent for them, but Grandmaster Ayla has promised us that her ascension will not influence any existing agreements that have already been set in place by her predecessor, Lord Araxis. Aspera will continue to be our friend for the foreseeable future.
Well, of course, Lady Ayla is your daughter-in-law and the mother of your grandchildren. I can't even begin to imagine Aaron going up against you.
Cato chuckled at the thought with some unease.
You have influence over Aspera through your son. You swayed Malachi to your side with the Bloodthorn bloodline. I am sorry I failed your attempt at persuading Moralis, Master.
For all the opportunities that our alliances with Aspera and Malachi bring along, there is still a nation that keeps eluding our efforts for a stronger bond. Moralis has sided with us during the Great War, but as everyone here knows, it was an alliance forged from necessity. The truth is that our relationship has been fragile ever since. However, a new dawn might be on the horizon. Lord Jackdaw, the chief advisor of Queen Rosa, contacted Master Caius a fortnight ago and provided us with some disturbing news. According to the intelligence of our northern neighbors, there have been sightings of activity in the lawless state of Doriva that may be perceived as a threat to the realm.
Doriva.
Cato thought and grimaced.
The oh-so-wonderful city to the north that's surrounded by treacherous mountains in all directions except for the south, where the lifeless sand of the Doran blows right through their main gate.
He never would have visited the secluded city if he wasn't told it had a passage through the mountains that connected Aedin with the enigmatic realm up north. He absolutely loathed Doriva with every fibre of his being and shuddered even thinking about it.
Nothing but thieves and crooks.
The last time he had been to Doriva, he was charged 2 silvers to stay the night at some shabby hut that barely passed off as an inn. On top of that, he was asked to cough up 2 additional coppers for a so-called foreigner tax. If that wasn't reason enough to regret his time in Doriva, he didn't even actually get to spend the night in the room. He was mugged in a narrow alleyway when he left one of the taverns a bit more intoxicated than intended. He could count himself lucky the dagger only grazed his chest, but was subsequently forced to spend a full day nursing his wounds in the very same alleyway that smelled like every imaginable sort of awful. After the recovery, he finally made it to the city's north gate, only to find out that the mountain passage leading to the northern realm had been sealed off. And according to the 6 guards that were posted there, the passage had been closed for centuries.
But if that was the case, then why guard the place at all?
Grandmaster Aemon invited Caius Silverink to take a stand.
Master Caius will elaborate with further details on the current situation regarding Moralis and Doriva,
he said and sat down. The old man looked tired, but knew how to conceal that behind his benevolent smile.
Thank you, Grandmaster Aemon.
The spymaster, who was dressed in black from head to toe, spoke in a calm and composed manner. He used his voice in such a way that would make anything he said sound ambiguous, but the message he brought this time was clear as day.
Doriva is preparing for war.
The words struck the cat like lightning on a clear day. Immediately, a chaotic storm of bangs and shouts whirled across the great hall. Lord Pemol erupted from the rear and shot up from his seat.
"A war!"
he roared. The veins on his shiny bald head were visibly throbbing. The anger in his voice made his neck flaps quiver as he spoke. His entire plump face turned from a fleshy pink to a greyish purple in seconds.
"Against whom?"
Caius remained utterly unmoved by Pemol Shamer's passionate outburst.
An excellent question, my lord.
He calmly said, but made no further effort to provide any answers until the belly would stop rumbling.
"We all know that filthy fucking snake never slithers for free!"
Lady Ceres, who Cato only knew as an embodiment of dignified sophistication, yelled from the side like a foul-mouthed fishmonger at the market.
"So who is the cock handler that hired him?"
Even Caius couldn't prevent a slight chuckling into his fist.
You are quite right, my lady. It is true that the snake only slithers at the sound of clinking coins. That is precisely why Saraki of the Sand is one of the wealthiest individuals in the realm today.
He paused for a moment to see if anyone else had any more to say. When the belly finally dwindled to a silence, he took a sip from his drink and watched with mild amusement how everyone anxiously stared back at him.
According to the Merylesian intel, Saraki has gathered a large army inside the walls of Doriva.
Lord Horace, who was sitting directly behind Cato, slammed his fist on the table with a bang.
"And what exactly counts as a large army, Master Caius? What numbers are we talking about here? Hundreds? Thousands?"
Caius shrugged.
Lord Jackdaw wasn't exactly forthcoming with his information.
How convenient,
Lady Marissa said. She still wore cerulean blue to every gathering in honour of her father.
Is Moralis even to be trusted? They have avoided us for years, and all of the sudden decide to share their military intelligence. That seems highly suspicious if you ask me. For all we know, they may be the ones financing Saraki of the Sand.
Her words triggered a low murmur in the belly once again.
Very astute as one is to expect from you, Lady Marissa. We do aim to find out if indeed they are to be trusted, but needless to say, the venture will not be without risks.
Caius responded calmly.
"And why exactly is this our problem?"
Lord Horace sneered.
"Doriva is their backyard, is it not?"
I am afraid that is the fate of a small nation. When situations beyond their limited resources arise, Stronger nations will need to lend support in order to help negate the issue.
Lord Horus slammed his fist on the table again, very much to the annoyance of the one sitting in front of him.
Well, let Malachi crawl in the dirt for once. They are much closer to Deriva than we are.
Cato scoffed and decided to give the senior lord a long, judging stare. He turned around, but noticed the glare he received from Caius at the last second. His motion immediately turned sluggish, as if he were moving underwater. Everything felt different all of the sudden. He wasn't necessarily nauseous, anxious, or delirious, and yet the entire great hall seemed to be melting before his very eyes. He saw that Lord Horus was still talking, but couldn't understand a single word that was being said. Only the grating noise of dry leaves scraping across frozen soil could be heard. An overwhelming sense of danger immediately held him in a tight chokehold. He felt paralyzed by it, as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff with a dagger pointed at his back. Cold drops were forming on his forehead. He wiped them off, the motion seemed to take forever, and started staring at his hand in shock. The sweat was black like ink, and slowly spread across his palm. He raised his eyes. Lord Horus was frozen in motion as if suspended in time. The infuriated ruler of Cotton Grove gradually faded to a dark silhouette. At the same time, the entire belly was being swallowed into a lightless abyss. He swung his eyes back to the dais and saw that everyone had turned into shadows, mere after-images of things that once shone brightly. Everyone, except for Caius. The spymaster didn't move, but stared straight at Cato with pitch-black eyes that resembled a pair of new moons. His lips were moving as if to say something, but only the harrowing sound of desiccated leaves filled the empty belly, like thousands of fingernails clawing at the stone walls of a prison cell, desperately digging toward freedom. Caius's hair grew and extended to his waist. The long black hair faded to the colour of ash at first, but then lit up in a brilliant silver. The sharp features of his chin and cheekbones smoothened to the point where he began to resemble a porcelain doll. All features of Caius Silverink were gradually erased to a blank canvas before his skin cracked open and crumbled to the floor like sand through an hourglass. A thick substance oozed from the cracks, dark and viscous, but somehow still translucent. It kept spilling out of him until he was completely covered in black and no longer resembled a human being.
The spectre,
Cato muttered in disbelief. His mind immediately went back to all past meetings he had with the featureless apparition in his dreams.
How is this even possible? Am I dreaming right now? Is this your doing, Caius?
His thoughts came to an abrupt end when the spectre started drifting toward him. It passed through the table on the dais, leaving behind a trail of black slime. The sound of scraping leaves intensified as the translucent figure got closer and closer to Cato. Then, everything went silent. It wasn't a silence of serenity, but rather one that could only be found inside a coffin, buried underneath the land of the living and trapped within the depths of a catacomb. It was the sound of death, the symphony of non-existence. The spectre stopped moving and hovered at the centre of the great hall, undulating like a flame in the wind. It didn't have any recognizable facial features, but spoke to Cato with a clarity that couldn't be replicated with a physical tongue. The voice was as clear and familiar as Cato's own thoughts.
I have finally found you,
the spectre said and extended a hand. Cato rose from his seat and raised his head. His movements might have been involuntary, but the defiance on his face was not.
This is just a dream,
he told himself in an attempt to find some form of reassurance. He saw his own hand rise to the ceiling without experiencing the actual motion. It was covered in a black sludge, like dozens of slugs lumped together to form a mitten. Before he knew it, he was holding the spectre's hand. It felt cold. Everything felt icy cold. But, and this was the part that truly terrified Cato, the touch felt immensely familiar.
My name is Cain.
A sudden uproar dragged Cato back to reality. The darkness vanished in an instant, but it took more than a few moments for him to realize that he was back in the belly of the cat. It took even longer for him to notice that all eyes were cast on him.
What the hell just happened?
He thought, and stared at his raised hand in confusion.
Was it really a dream?
His eyes immediately darted off in search of Caius as soon as he regained his composure. For a second, he expected to find the spectre on the dais, but instead was met with expressions that varied from confusion to concern and disdain to anger.
Why are you all looking at me like that?
Unacceptable!
Cronus slammed his fist on the table, knocking over 2 glasses and breaking one of them in the process.
You speak out of turn here, boy! What makes you think you have the right to cut in line?
Cut in line? What are you talking about?
Cato lowered his hand and stared at his palm. The black ooze had disappeared, but he still felt the ice-cold touch of the spectre numbing his fingers.
Cain,
He mumbled to himself and raised his head again to face the masters on the dais. Mycon whispered something into Aemon's ear. The old man stared back at Mycon with troubled eyes, and Cato wasn't able to figure out whether it was the face of sadness or one of disappointment he was seeing. Either way, it made him feel horrible.
have I done something to upset you, Master?
Well,
Caius said.
it seems to me that Master Cronus clearly disapproves of your proposal, Lord Cato. Do you have any arguments you would like to make to convince him otherwise?
My proposal?
Cato turned to the spymaster and momentarily lost his ability to speak. He was unable to shake off the image of Caius transforming into the spectre from his mind. His heart was drumming so violently in his chest, it shook his entire vision in an angry rhythm.
Lord Cato,
Caius raised one of his thin eyebrows.
is there anything at all you would like to say?
Aisha leaned forward and loudly snapped her fingers twice to get Cato's attention. She was one of the masters who carried a look on her face that lingered somewhere between angry and concerned.
Please, Lord Cato, won't you be so kind as to enlighten us? I think we would all like to know why you think that you should be sent to Doriva instead of Master Cronus.
Cato turned his eyes to Aisha. The mere sight of her made his calm return, even though the look she gave him was anything but calm. Still, he counted his blessing that she was at the very least merciful enough to clarify the question. Or so he thought, until he realized what she was actually saying.
Doriva?
He rapidly blinked a few times in an attempt to find his bearings.
Why would I want to go to that shithole?
Lord Cato, are you feeling all right?
Cato glanced at his hand again, found enough composure to shake off his confusion and feigned a smile.
Pardon, Master Aisha, I'm fine.
His experience as a diplomat made the facade seem convincing and natural, but in truth he had no idea how to answer the initial question. He had no intention of going to Doriva, but at the same time knew that deciding to back down now would undoubtedly leave a massive dent in the reputation he had worked so hard for years to achieve. He simply couldn't allow himself to put on an embarrassing display in front of Onira's nobility.
It was never my intention to upset Master Cronus with my proposal. For that, I apologize.
He turned to Cronus and performed a courteous bow, all the while thinking of a credible reason why he should be favoured to lead the mission. In truth, he could provide a dozen reasons why he should be ahead of Cronus Metalung in the pecking order, but none that wouldn't be received as a grave insult. Cronus replied with a low, guttural sound and a dismissive wave of his hand. He then motioned a servant to clean up the broken glass and resupply him with a new drink.
If I may be so bold to speak without restraint,
Cato said and paused until Aisha lent him the approval with a nod.
I think sending Master Cronus to Doriva would be highly irresponsible.
Irresponsible!
Cronus slammed his palms on the table and launched himself from his seat.
I'm warning you, Cato Knight. You better watch what flies out of your mouth next!
Cato immediately countered with a disarming smile.
Please calm yourself, Master Cronus. I meant no offence.
He already anticipated the outburst and coolly kept his composure intact.
If you allow me the chance to explain myself, then perhaps you too may agree with my reasoning.
Then get to the point, Lord Cato.
Aisha said sharply before Cronus was given the opportunity to react.
Very well, my lady.
He paused again and tried to get a read on Aisha, but her cold stare forced him to keep his explanation going.
To my understanding, the Doriva mission is considered one that's diplomatic in nature. If I paid correct attention to the words of Grandmaster Aemon, diplomacy seems to be the common theme of this gathering. Sending Master Cronus, a fearsome warrior of great renown, could be perceived as a provocation from our side. And let's not forget the fact that Master Cronus is the commander who is responsible for our nation's northeastern border. If indeed Saraki of the Sand is housing a large army within the walls of Doriva, and his sight is by chance aimed at us, the absence of Master Cronus will leave our 3rd Division without proper leadership.
He cast an inconspicuous glance at Master Cronus, and wasn't surprised to find out that flattery was still the currency to buy all favours.
Enjoy this moment, you runt. Our priority for this mission is information. We need to learn what Saraki of the Sand is planning without emanating hostility. Baring our teeth would accomplish nothing at this point. In situations like these, dialogue should always be the initial solution. You are asking why the Doriva mission should be handed to me, but I honestly cannot think of anyone more qualified to take on the task. My occupation as an Oneran emissary will contribute to the chances of a successful dialogue. Furthermore, I have been to Doriva before and know my way inside the walls. It might be advantageous to gather information from the common folk before I meet with Lord Saraki. Most Dorivans have their roots in Malachi and are known to detest the common tongue, but I speak Malak almost as fluently as you do.
Aisha reluctantly conceded with a grunt.
Very well. You have obviously put deliberation into your reasoning. However, I do hope you understand that while this mission may start off diplomatic initially, the situation can quickly escalate into something much more precarious if Saraki is unwilling to lend his cooperation. What will you do if you are forced to deal with him on the spot?
I appreciate your concern, Master Aisha.
Do not misinterpret me, Lord Cato. Any concerns that may have inadvertently bled into my words are purely for the success of the mission.
Aisha's icy tone made him flinch. Even though he had already sensed her fury, it was very uncharacteristic to put her feelings on such public display like that.
My lady, let me assure you and everyone else in attendance that I will not fail my duty to Oneira. Should the circumstances call for Lord Saraki's apprehension, I will extract the necessary information one way or another. What am I even saying?
Fine.
Aisha leaned back and folded her arms.
Do as you please, Lord Cato. Let us hope that a firm solution will not be necessary.
Cato gave her a nod, but noticed that she was actively avoiding his pursuit to establish eye contact. Caius put his palms together with a loud clap that seemed to startle a couple of attendants out of their reveries.
You make an excellent case for yourself, Lord Cato. I am sure we can all agree that—
Cato didn't listen in the slightest to what was being said. As soon as the spy master started speaking, his mind wandered off to the strange vision again.
My name is Cain.
He still heard the spectre say in a voice that was as loud, clear, and familiar as his own thoughts. And then, as if thinking of the spectre alone was enough to make it come to life, the darkness returned to the great hall. It couldn't have lasted for much longer than the blink of an eye, but within that fleeting moment, he heard the same voice call out to him.
I have finally found you, Cato Knight.
Suddenly, everyone in attendance started applauding and cheering. It sounded like a gust of autumn wind sweeping across a forest floor. He looked over his shoulder and saw that it was him they were all clapping for. He quickly turned his eyes to Caius on the dais, who only answered his bewildered look with a peculiar smile. It made him nauseous somehow. Cold sweat ran down his face like a melting glacier. For a moment it seemed a certainty that he was going to vomit right then and there, but the queasiness dissipated like a cloud before the scorching sun when Grandmaster Aemon stood up and sent him a warm smile. He didn't have the energy to answer with one of his own, however.
Judging by the overwhelming support from the audience, as well as the encouraging words from Master Caius, it seems clear to me who is favoured to lead the mission. I would like to commend Lord Cato on his bravery to volunteer for this potentially dangerous endeavour.
The Grand Master turned directly to his pupil and sighed at the sight of Cato's bewilderment.
As Master Aisha already said, you may very well be entering hostile territory. Saraki of the Sand is one of the most dangerous individuals in the realm, and as inspiring as your determination is, you would be wise not to underestimate him. We all know how treacherous confidence can be. Do not put yourself in unnecessary danger, Lord Cato. Assemble your team with the greatest of care and be prepared for any situation.
He gave his pupil a long and meaningful stare before turning to the audience with a charming grin.
My noble lords and ladies of Onira, this concludes our gathering for today. Please feel free to stay around and continue enjoying yourselves. The feast is expected to begin in a few hours, so that leaves you plenty of time to freshen up.
He raised his cup and invited the attendants to do the same.
To Onira!
To Onira! They all repeated with fervour and spread out across the room, immediately filling the belly with sounds of laughter and chattering.
Oh, Nera.
Cato muttered along and stared in front of him without actually looking at anything. His thoughts were completely scattered, and he barely had time to process what he had gotten himself into. He was still staring at the dais long after the masters had already left.